My wife, Laura, who's a lawyer, came up with this wild idea for us to fake a divorce so she could marry my best bud, Jake. The whole thing was just to help Jake's kid, Liam, snag a spot at a good school. Seeing the way they looked at each other, I grinned and said yes right then. Since it's just a fake divorce, I could still keep full control of our stuff, so no biggie for me. So today, Jake officially split from Mia. To celebrate his newfound freedom, he threw a party and invited a bunch of friends, including Laura and me. Laura was handling Jake and Mia's case. Without her, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly, and Jake wouldn't have gotten the better end of the deal when it came to splitting their property. Jake kicked things off with a toast to Laura. "Thanks, sis-in-law. Not much else to say. Cheers." Laura gave a slight frown and declined. "I'm on meds, can't drink." I gave her a puzzled look. She wasn't sick, so what meds was she on? Ever since Laura started dating me, she's been pretty delicate, always leaning on me when she felt off. I was sure she wasn't taking any meds, but I couldn't figure out why she said that. Jake's hand holding his wine glass froze, and he stood there awkwardly with a bitter smile. "It's cool, sis-in-law. I'll drink." A hint of worry flashed in Laura's eyes. Watching Jake down his drink, she bit her lip and just frowned a bit in disapproval. Today, Jake was genuinely happy. Ever since Mia cheated on him, it's been almost 6 months, and Jake's been feeling more and more down. But today, he was in high spirits, mingling with friends, chatting and drinking, enjoying himself. Laura, on the other hand, seemed spaced out. She even knocked over my dishes twice. Soup splashed on my shirt, but she didn't seem to notice, just instinctively wiped the table with a napkin. I opened my mouth to say something, but she suddenly stood up. "I'm heading to the restroom," she announced before I could react. She was gone from the private room in no time. "Where's Jake?" I asked a friend next to me. "He just stepped out, probably to the restroom. By the way, where's Laura?" I frowned and stood up. "Where are you going?" "Just getting some air. There's a window at the end of the hallway." I genuinely wanted some fresh air, not to catch some shady affair or anything. At the corner, I saw Jake holding his head silently, his arm around Laura's shoulders, almost hugging her. Laura didn't dodge. She took out some meds from her pocket and handed them to Jake, then unscrewed a water bottle, letting him sip slowly. She glared at Jake, pretending to be mad. "Serves you right." Jake smiled helplessly. Laura was right. But with so many people around, if I disagreed, I'd lose face. Laura snorted coldly. "Lost face? Did you forget you've got gastritis?" Jake shook his head and smiled. "An occasional drink won't hurt." Laura pouted and pushed Jake away, saying, "Fine, you're good, then I won't care about you." Jake laughed and pulled her back, gently coaxing. All right, my bad. I know you care about me. Let's go back so my brother doesn't worry." As they walked away, I left too. One was my best friend, the other the person I loved most. How was I supposed to handle this? But it felt like I deserved it now. Jake had been my childhood friend and best bro for over 20 years. My trust in him was unmatched, and vice versa. When he found out Mia was cheating, he didn't worry about me laughing at him. He told me first. It was a rough time for him, obsessed with why Mia betrayed him. He didn't think about how to handle it, just stubbornly wanted answers. I drank with him, played cards, even took him to our old hangout spot and played all night. During that time, Laura threw big fits, feeling I was neglecting her because of Jake. There wasn't much I could do. Growing up, Jake was always by my side. In elementary school, he insisted on going to the restroom with me. If I didn't want to go, he'd hold it in, saying good bros stick together. In middle school, he was in the same classes, always calling me Bro Ming from behind. When I ran for class committee, he campaigned for me. When I was in trouble, he backed me up. During our college years, even though we didn't see each other often, he'd check in every few weeks to see if I was doing okay. When I first started job hunting and hit some rough patches, he said without hesitation, "Stay with me until you find a job and can move out." People say even the best bros fight sometimes, but we never argued. I was quick-tempered, and he always kept me calm, offering advice and weighing the pros and cons. He was chill, often getting taken advantage of without saying a word. When his boss gave him an unfair bill, I'd stand up for him and cause a scene. A lot of people called him my lapdog, but he always said making peace brings money, advising me not to sweat the small stuff. With a bro like that, how could I ignore him during his toughest times? So I tried to balance both sides, persuading them. Eventually, Jake decided to divorce, but Mia wasn't on board. Bro Ming, isn't sis-in-law a lawyer with a solid reputation? Can you ask her to help me with this case instead of letting someone else take the lawyer's fee? It's better for family, I asked. Of course, I wanted to help as much as possible, but I knew it'd be a hassle. Laura's willingness was another story. Handling a friend's case and taking money felt awkward. After all, Laura is Laura and I'm me. If it were me, I'd do it for free. But between husband and wife, some things need mutual understanding. So I said I'd ask without making any promises. Sure enough, Laura looked troubled when I brought it up. Honey, I've thought about it. You often talk about your bro, and I always thought he was pretty soft. If he hits a snag, I worry he might back down or make bad deals. What should I do then? From a legal standpoint, showing weakness is a huge disadvantage in negotiations. Also, if the judgment isn't in his favor, your brotherly relationship might take a hit. Why don't you tell him I don't usually take civil cases, so it's inconvenient? I nodded and passed Laura's message to him. While drinking with me, Jake poured out his heart. He said that after settling down in middle age, his parents passed away one after another. He focused on his career to support his small family, but Mia cheated and took most of their money. Now, relatives don't interact with him, and friends avoid him like the plague. He felt too unlucky, not knowing which god he offended. With nothing going right, he vented his misery all night, saying he didn't know what to do and begged me to help him no matter what. Moved by his words and a couple of beers in, I decided to help him personally. I called around and found out Mia and her lover's address, planning to give them some legal edge intimidation. However, during our planning, Laura directly stopped me. Her angry glare almost cut through me. She said, "If I knew you were going to do this, I would have taken the case myself." So Laura ended up handling the case. But later, she and Jake got closer. When she passed by me, she said, "All this happened because of me." When I got back to the private room, Jake was sitting in my spot, laughing and chatting with Laura. Laura smiled as she subconsciously accepted the food Jake served her, like they'd done this a million times before. Jake noticed me first. His expression froze for a second before he quickly stood up and waved. "Bro Ming, where'd you go?" "I didn't see you." I pushed his arm away. "Just went out for some fresh air." Jake's eyes were momentarily lost. He acted like nothing was wrong and smiled at me. "Then sit down. I'll go talk to them." I returned to my seat, sat down lifelessly, lit a cigarette, and immediately crushed it in the ashtray. Laura looked at me confused. "What's wrong with you?" I glanced at her. "What do you mean? What's wrong with me?" Laura frowned and started eating sulkily. Over the years, whenever Laura saw me looking displeased, she thought I was giving her attitude or disrespecting her. It seemed like no matter what, I always had to appear happy. At that moment, a few people were clamoring to drink with Jake. Laura showed that worried look again. I found it kind of funny and laughed out loud. She glanced at me, then quickly avoided my gaze and looked down. I stood up and poured a glass of wine, addressing Jake politely. "Bro, you've toasted everyone else, but you can't skip mine, can you?" He smiled awkwardly and said, "Of course not. How could I refuse Bro Ming's toast?" I glanced at Laura's mixed expression of anger and worry, then at Jake's helpless face as he drank. I felt pretty pleased. After one glass, I naturally toasted another. Everyone around us marveled at how tight Jake and I were. Later, Jake drank a lot, but it seemed like I drank even more. In a semi-conscious state, Laura grabbed my lot, but it felt like I kept drinking more. She grabbed my hand, but I instinctively pushed her away. In the end, Jake on my left and Laura on my right supported me into the car. Laura said to Jake, "Why don't you come with us? I'll drop you off first. Jake shook his head. No need. I'll take a cab. You take Bro Ming home. Laura, thinking I was too drunk to notice, said, It's too late and you've been drinking. I won't feel at ease. It's on the way. Jake suddenly lowered his voice. Sis-in-law, don't. I'm fine. You take Bro Ming home. I overheard everything without any burden, then closed my eyes and turned over. Jake ultimately didn't get in our car. The ride home was silent. No music, no conversation. That night, Laura stayed up all night in the living room watching videos. I, on the other hand, slept soundly and, for once, had a pleasant dream. Jake's case wasn't smooth from the start. As Laura explained, Jake's always been indecisive. A lawyer needs to know the facts to provide the right strategies, but Jake often missed the point and glossed over key issues. Sometimes, seeing him so hesitant, I couldn't stand it and often impatiently urged him to face the problems. Laura sighed and called me outside, saying, Honey, let him talk to me alone, maybe with you around. He's embarrassed to talk about family matters. It's pretty humiliating. That day, they talked in the office for over an hour. When they came out, Jake looked unusually relaxed, like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. He said, Thanks a ton, bro and sis-in-law. I asked what happened. He said, Sis-in-law is really considerate and respects my feelings. He looked at me with envy in his eyes. That look and his description made my heart skip a beat, but I didn't think much of it. I asked Laura what she did. She said, Nothing much. I just had a heart-to-heart with him. Told him most families have their own struggles and some things must be faced. I also encouraged and comforted him. Men need some respect, and once that's considered, they open up. I'll handle future contact with him alone. Sure enough, from that day on, the case moved along more smoothly. At first, Jake would chat with me about the progress. I don't know when, but our contact became less frequent. Until one day, I called him to ask about the case's progress. He casually said, What progress? I'm not sure. Sis-in-law is handling everything. I replied helplessly, All right, I'll ask her tonight. He said, No need. Laura is right next to me. I'll let her talk to you. So, suddenly, through Jake's phone, I spoke to Laura. She said something, but I wasn't paying attention. I just thought their relationship seemed a bit too close. Laura teased, Are you unhappy that I'm getting along well with your bro? I casually asked her, Do you still think Jake is soft and likely to back down? At the time, Laura was busy with her laptop, taking a break. She laughed. Actually, he's quite interesting. Too many clues made my suspicious mind more and more tense. When did that string break? It should have been that early morning. Laura and I were both asleep when her phone suddenly rang. Half asleep, she answered. I don't know what she heard, but the next second she sat up suddenly. She said, I'll be there right away. Jake, don't open the door for her and don't talk to her, but keep the recording on. I'll call the police first. Wait for me. She then hurriedly started finding her clothes. Unlike my carefree self, Laura always did things methodically. Though we influenced each other over the years, I had never seen her this anxious. It gave me a bad feeling. I asked her, What happened? She said, Mia went to see Jake again. She's threatening to kill herself if he doesn't open the door. You go back to sleep. I'll handle this, I blurted out. Shouldn't he have called me first? Why call you? Wouldn't it be better if I brought some people over? Laura turned around, her eyes filled with disbelief. Ethan Brooks, what are you thinking? He's your best friend. His parents died, his wife cheated, and he's tormented by lawsuits. Are men's hearts made of stone? Why do I see no sympathy in your eyes? Jake only has you as a friend. Have you ever cared for him? Every time he asks you out, you say you're busy. When have you ever gone when he called? Is this how you treat a friend? Yes, he's my best friend, but when he had a problem, he contacted my wife first. Laura was furious, almost slamming the door as she left. I stood there for a long time, suppressing my turbulent emotions, and finally decided to follow and see. When I arrived, Jake's door was open. His sighing voice came from inside. Mia was almost cutting her wrists at the door. She said, If I die, it'd be my fault, and I'd haunt you forever. Laura, maybe I shouldn't push her too hard. Laura's gentle voice responded, It's okay. She won't really do it. Jake, look at me, trust me, okay? Seeing you like this makes me... I didn't hear more and went straight in, saying, What are you two doing? In retrospect, I was just deceiving myself. I didn't want to hear too much, didn't want them to keep talking, didn't want to hear what I didn't want to hear. Lately, Laura's been hitting the law firm super early, and by the time I wake up, she's already gone. She made me breakfast, left it on the table, and left a note reminding me to eat. I stared at the food for a long time, but didn't touch it. At noon, while I was arranging for my employees to collect debts, I got a call from the property manager. He asked if we'd forgotten to turn off the faucet at home because the downstairs neighbor complained about a leak. It was ridiculous. That house had been empty for a long time, and even the main valve was off. So how could there be a leak? I hurried over there. It turned out to be our problem. The bathroom faucet was gushing water and the floor was soaked. I quickly turned off the faucet and apologized to the downstairs neighbor, negotiating compensation. I put on a smiling face, listened to their complaints, and finally resolved the issue. After sending the neighbor away, my face went cold. The property manager asked if I had rented out the house and who was living there now. Yes, who's living there? I replied. It was Jake. Unexpected, right? I didn't see it coming. When I saw the photos of him and his son on the cabinet, a rush of anger surged through me and my nails dug deep into my flesh. Was I blind? I thought I was calm enough, but when I took out my phone to make a call, my hand was trembling. So embarrassing. These hands meant for hitting were shaking like a leaf. Taking a deep breath, I suppressed the urge to scream. I called Laura. No answer. I called Jake. Still no answer. What was I supposed to think? Without hesitation, I went straight to Laura's company. She might not be there. Or she might be. If she was, what should I say? My mind was a mess the entire way. I never expected Jake to be in Laura's office. Laura was sitting there, and Jake was standing behind her. He was bent over, one hand on the table, the other holding the mouse, and Laura was tilting her head, looking at him intently. I knew that look. I knew what it meant. I pushed the door open forcefully, hitting the wall with a loud bang. The office was left with just Laura and me. She said, Honey, I want to help Jake. He resigned and is now at a low point in his life. He asked me for advice, and I suggested he look at some course outlines. If he's interested, he could pursue a master's in law. Whether for further studies or a related career, it's a good path. Our firm is also hiring. This Laura felt so unfamiliar to me. I never knew she cared so much about clients. Laura looked at me irritably. Stop with the sarcasm. There's nothing between Jake and me. Innocence speaks for itself. I nodded, got up to leave, but she grabbed my sleeve and asked, What do you mean? I looked at her puzzled. Isn't it clear? Do as you please. When I opened the door, Jake was standing outside. He looked anxious and pale. Ethan, it's not what you think. Let me explain. No need for explanations. He seemed even more terrified, quickly glancing at Laura, then back at me. I smirked. Does it matter? Jake's hair seems to be standing on end. I'd said those words to many before, and their outcomes weren't good. But Laura suddenly spoke up. Honey, don't threaten him. There's really nothing between us, I swear. Jake sighed in relief. I knew these two too well. Sometimes I was grateful for this familiarity. Other times, I hated it. By the way, I said to Jake, you forgot to turn off the faucet when you left today. Next time, be careful. You know, that house was left to me by my parents. Can you move out in 3 days? And Laura, please return the keys. Jake's eyes widened, looking at me in horror. His face grew paler. Laura stepped forward, wanting to speak. I shook my head at her. There are so many people here. You don't want me to make a scene, do you? I walked away without looking back. I heard that after I left, Jake fainted. Laura told me this when she came back to pack her things. I let him stay in the old house because Mia kept pestering him. You're his best friend. You know his state. He quit his job and went home because those life issues were overwhelming him. Now, because of your threats, he's becoming more anxious. I just wanted to help him. I was going to discuss it with you, but you were always suspicious. We didn't want you to misunderstand. She said, I know you're upset with me now, so let's take a break. There's a big criminal case that needs our team's attention, and it might be an opportunity for me. I'll stay at the firm for a few days. Laura, I called her. You're going to the firm, right? Laura looked at me, her eyes cold. She said, Ethan, what do you want from me? Can't I have my own career? Then she stormed out, slamming the door without hesitation. Suddenly, I remembered what Jake said that day when we were drinking. He angrily questioned Mia. Why are you doing this to me? Didn't you say you'd always be by my side no matter what? Always supporting and encouraging me? Mia just smiled faintly, as if talking about something ordinary. She said, everything in this world changes. Why can't I? Why can't my feelings for you change? That day, Jake smiled bitterly. What's even stranger is that Mia was the one who cheated. She was the one who fell out of love. But in the end, she shamelessly said she never thought about divorcing me, as if not divorcing me was a favor she was doing for me. The next afternoon, I went to the hospital. Before that, I stopped by Laura's law firm. She wasn't there. Her colleague told me, it's lunchtime. She should be at the hospital. She's been going there on time these past few days. She's just kind-hearted and nice to everyone. Don't overthink it. I smiled and left. Laura. Kind-hearted? Not really. On the contrary, she's a bit cold. She's always clear about her own business and others. In her words, not empathizing is part of her professional ethics and respect for herself and others. For so many years, she never did anything that could lead to misunderstandings. If she's good to someone, it's genuinely from the heart. When I got to the hospital, Laura was gently persuading Jake to eat. You need to eat something. Your stomach is bad. You can't go on like this. Think about it. Your parents wouldn't want to see you like this. Sis-in-law, you're so good to me, but Bro Ming seems like he can never forgive me. Laura sighed. That's just his temper. I'll talk to him. And I'll also talk to him about that other thing. Talk to me? About what? I was puzzled. I'll also talk to him about that other thing. Talk to me? About what? I was still puzzled, but Jake suddenly grabbed Laura's shoulder. Don't tell Ethan. This is my business. It has nothing to do with you guys. I'll solve it myself. Don't involve Bro Ming. Laura looked worried. Her hand unconsciously brushed against Jake's palm, but when she realized it, she carefully pulled back. I stood at the door, numbly watching it all. A sharp pain pierced my heart. I bit my teeth, using the pain to suppress the pain. I asked, "What do you want to talk to me about?" The moment they saw me, Jake looked terrified, and Laura stood up quickly, putting distance between herself and Jake. Jake looked at me in panic, trying to force a smile. "Ethan, you're here." I looked at him expressionlessly, then turned to Laura. "Speak. What do you want to talk to me about?" "Nothing. Nothing." Jake denied it immediately. Laura stepped forward and said, "Honey, there's something I want to ask you for help with." I motioned for her to continue. Jake tried to stop her, but Laura didn't give him a chance. She said, "Ethan, let's get a divorce. It's not easy for Jake to raise a kid alone. Now Liam's school registration is a problem without the right household registration. Let's help him one more time. Once Liam's schooling is settled, we can remarry." Okay. I never thought I'd hear something so absurd. I doubted my ears were working correctly. "What?" Jake, pale, shook his head vigorously. "Bro, Ming, that's not it. Sis-in-law's overthinking it. I can handle it myself." Laura, like a car with failed brakes, continued, "Honey, let's get a temporary divorce." Jake kept waving his hands, saying, "Bro Ming, sis-in-law is confused. It's her lawyer habit talking. That's why she came up with such a ridiculous idea. Laura, with a persuasive look, said to me, "It's nothing, Ethan. Many immigration lawyers do this. Fake marriages and divorces are common. You might not have heard of it, so you think it's a big deal. But sometimes you have to make way for living. A marriage certificate or divorce certificate is just a piece of paper. Liam's future is the most important. It's just a formality." Her words made me feel extremely nauseated. Silently, I clenched the divorce papers I had just drafted and shoved them back into my bag. I said, "Laura, you're dreaming." I thought, if that's the case, we need to reconsider the division of assets. Laura chased after me as I left the hospital. She grabbed my hand. Her brows furrowed with confusion. "Ethan, let's talk." I sneered. "Talk about what? Divorce? Laura, you can say anything, can't you?" Laura frowned and said, "It's a fake divorce. I just want to help him." "Laura, do you even believe what you're saying?" "I'm telling the truth." "Why don't you believe me?" I replied half-mockingly. "All right, I'm in no hurry. Or you could sue me. You haven't handled a case for yourself yet, have you?" Laura looked at me seriously, a hint of grievance in her eyes. "Honey, I'm discussing this with you. I said I don't want a real divorce. This is just a last resort." I thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "Laura, are you out of your mind? This reason might convince you, but it won't convince me. If you want to convince me, you'll need to be more practical." Laura was about to say something when her phone rang. I turned and left. She wanted to follow, but hesitated when she saw the caller ID. She said, "We'll talk later." I silently looked at my hand for a while, then turned and left. On the way out, I glanced back and saw Laura's back as she hurried into the hospital. Jake said he wanted to talk to me. I agreed. We met at a restaurant we used to frequent. Jake looked unwell, like he was sick. When he saw me, he stood up awkwardly. "Bro, Ming, you're here. Please sit. What'd you want to drink?" I ordered a pot of tea and sat down, lightly tapping my fingers on the cup. "Go ahead. What do you want to say?" Jake gave an awkward smile. "Bro, Ming, don't listen to sis-in-law. She's just worried about Liam's schooling. I'll handle it myself. I can't trouble you and your wife anymore." Jake was smart for once. He lumped Laura and me together, making it seem like we both wanted to help. But it was too late. "Jake, do you like Laura?" Jake shook his head repeatedly. "I don't. How could I? How could I possibly like her?" "Then I don't get it. If you don't like her, why give her hints?" "I didn't." Jake denied it vehemently. "Bro, Ming, I swear I didn't." I shook my head, smiling. "Jake, adults have their boundaries. We're both men. Do I need to explain what certain behaviors mean? Do you think your relationship is just between a client and a lawyer, like a doctor and a patient, or a landlord and a tenant? There are boundaries. Do you think you haven't crossed the line but with hints? Not every woman would shamelessly initiate. You two are quite in sync, aren't you?" I smiled as I finished, my fingernails scratching the cup's surface with a grating noise. Jake's face turned as white as a ghost. He looked at me in fear and said, "Ethan, I really didn't." I coldly stared at him. "Jake, I have to admit, you're really good at reading women and understanding their emotions. When I used to ride in your car, what did you say? You said your passenger seat was only for Mia or your girlfriend. I called you a hopeless romantic back then. What's the big deal? I'm a man. And you said it still mattered because women care about these small details. So I want to ask, what were you thinking when you had Laura sit in the passenger seat when you came to see me?" Jake froze in place. I pointed across the way. "I was there before you came. The view was clear, so I clearly saw Laura coming with you. When you got out, she stood on tiptoe to tie your scarf." Jake opened his mouth. I interrupted him. "Don't tell me she's just too kind and worried about you as a client." "Jake, if you insist on that, I'll have to assume you think I'm a fool. If that's your point, our conversation ends here. What do you think?" Jake slumped back in his chair. I looked at him indifferently. He said, "Bro Ming, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I really was wrong. From the moment Laura suggested the fake divorce, I knew I was wrong. Don't worry, nothing ever happened between us. I'll draw the line and return her to you. We won't see each other again, Bro Ming. Forgive me this once, please? I smiled non-committally, mockingly. Only now do you realize, bro, you're still not being honest. So, your first reaction in an emergency at night was to call her, not me. If I hadn't shown up, do you think it's normal for a man and a woman to be alone together? She dared to let you stay in my house out of pure kindness. Do you think that's normal? As a client, she's making career plans for you, even trying to get you into her firm. Do you think that's normal? You say it's just because you can't let go of her kindness and concern. That's a tough claim. You two are practically glued together. And you only realized the mistake when she suggested the fake marriage? It's not like that, Bro Ming. I feel good, doesn't it? My woman goes out of her way to be good to you. Even willing to divorce me. Must be thrilling. Ryan shook his head. He seemed unable to say anything, but kept shaking his head. Stop pretending, Jake. You just said you'd return her to me. You used the word return, implying you assumed she was mine now. Right, so I'm not wrong. You two must have already confessed your feelings, right? Jake looked up, shocked, staring at me in disbelief, as if he couldn't understand how I knew. Ryan, I've known you for over 20 years. No one knows you better than I do. My words shattered Jake's composure. Ethan, remember the guy Mia cheated with? I met him before your lawsuit. He wasn't with Mia anymore. He even had a new girlfriend and was planning to get married at the end of the year. He was doing well, very at peace, almost like he'd been reborn. He wanted to apologize to you, saying he was immature back then and hoped you could forgive him. He said he had moved on and hoped you could too. I understand, Jake. Likewise, he understands me. You know, I can't forgive him. Jake, he tore your family apart, messed up your life, and then just walked away with an apology. Why does he think he should pick up the pieces he left behind? Why does he think you should accept his return? Jake was trembling all over and asked me what I wanted. I sneered. A divorce. Making room for you, too. Jake's lips quivered. I never thought about it before. And I never will, Bro Ming. I won't be with her. Really? That's your business? I looked out the window. But if Laura knew Jake was saying this, she'd probably be devastated. That thought made me smile. Seeing my smile, Jake hurriedly said, Bro Ming, if you want a divorce, then divorce her. She doesn't deserve you. I stood up and looked at him with disdain. Before leaving, I said, Jake, you don't need to call me bro anymore. We stopped being brothers long ago. Jake and I truly grew up together, from kindergarten to marriage, always the best of bros. Back then, our families lived close, just upstairs and downstairs. When we were kids, his parents often fought, and he was scared, hiding in the hallway crying. So I'd take my allowance, treat him to snacks, and bring him to my house to play games with me. I'd even stand up to his dad who wanted to hit him. Later, seeing how pitiful he was, I started having him over for meals and to do homework together every day. Everyone knew that Ethan's best friend was Jake. Everyone knew that Ethan always stood behind Jake. If I had food, he'd never go hungry. I never minded giving and taking with him. From kindergarten to high school, the farthest we were ever apart was the distance between two classrooms. Even in college, we never lost touch. My dad joked, I should just adopt you as my godson. Jake nodded. I grew up eating Ethan's family's food. Calling Ethan bro and calling Uncle Dad was only right. How laughable. To be betrayed like this by the person I trusted the most. I truly deserved it. Laura came home at dusk. She said to me, Honey, let's just help Jake. He's your best friend. You can't bear to see him down and out, right? I nodded, saying, Yeah, but I'm not a lawyer. I can't take divorce lightly. That makes me uneasy, especially since a divorce involves dividing assets. Even if the divorce is fake, the procedure is real. She replied, Honey, it's just a fake divorce. When the time is right, we'll remarry. If you're worried, I'll transfer all the assets to you. I looked at Laura, seeing her head over heels in love, seeing her deceive herself. I made a helpless expression and said, "All right, let's get a divorce then." Our divorce process was smooth and quick. The divorce agreement was prepared by her, the property, car, and bank savings were all given to me. On the day we got the divorce certificate, I asked Laura to move out of the house. She was stunned, confused. "What do you mean?" I said, "The house is mine. We're divorced. Isn't it normal for you to move out?" "We're only fake divorced. Who told you that?" "Ethan, what do you mean?" I laughed coldly. "Laura, I never intended to fake divorce you." Laura was smart. She realized instantly. "You tricked me." "Tricked you? Not really." Laura stared at me helplessly for a long time. Finally, she said, "You don't have to do this. There's nothing between Jake and me, and there never will be. I just wanted to help him. There's no possibility between us." "Ethan, what do you want?" Looking at the incredulous Laura, I found it ridiculous. "Laura, you really don't know me. Do you really think I could ignore the ambiguity between you and Jake? Do you really think I, Ethan, could swallow this? I can't. But what can I do? I can't kill you. So just stay away from me. Don't stand in front of me and disgust me." My words were harsh. Laura's eyes showed a trace of helplessness. "Ethan, don't treat me like this." I sneered at her, shaking my head, signaling her to leave quickly. Her face turned red with anger, and she said furiously, "Fine, don't regret this." Laura moved out, taking only one suitcase. I asked her what she planned to do with the rest of her stuff. She said, "Throw it away." She was angry, thinking I was acting out of spite, too. I smiled and nodded. "All right, I got it." The next day, I cleared out all of Laura's personal items. For her work-related stuff, I hired a courier to send them to her law firm. As soon as the items were delivered, Laura called me, sounding extremely aggrieved. "Ethan, what are you trying to do?" "What am I trying to do? What a stupid question." "Laura, can you stop being stupid?" I hung up and blocked her on all communication platforms. From that day on, I cut off all contact with Laura. Later, Jake sent me a message. "Bro, Ming, I'm leaving. I won't bother you anymore." A couple of days later, he sent another message. "I gave custody of Liam to Mia. She will handle his schooling. I was too stubborn before, thinking a mother like her would affect our son's future. But now I realize it's just a case of the pot calling the kettle black. She is still Liam's mother." "Bro, Ming, I'm sorry." I decisively deleted the messages without replying. Not everything in this world can be forgiven with a smile. If everything could be erased so easily, that would be great. What happened between Laura and Jake? I didn't know, and I didn't bother to find out. However, after Jake told me that his son's schooling issue was resolved, Laura drank a lot. Her friend called me, "Bro Ming, Laura is drunk. Can you come and pick her up?" I said, "We're divorced." I thought I'd made myself clear, but I didn't expect Laura to come to me on her own. Though she had a slight smell of alcohol, her eyes were clear. I knew she wasn't drunk. I asked her, "What are you doing here?" Laura smiled at me. "Honey, Liam's schooling is settled. Let's remarry tomorrow." I was silent for a few seconds. "Laura, are you joking?" Laura's lips pressed into a straight line. "We agreed on this. It was a fake divorce." Her tone made me feel absurd, just like when I first heard her say she wanted a fake divorce. "Laura, I don't believe you. Can't you see it? Is it fun to deceive yourself like this?" I tried to close the door, but Laura blocked it. "Honey, let's talk." Talk. Laura and I missed the best time to have a good talk long ago. Now it's too late to say anything. But since you want to talk, I'll talk with you. I just hope this farce ends here. But how to start the conversation? I couldn't find a clue for a moment. Finally, Laura spoke. "Our fake divorce was just to help Jake. Now that Liam's issue is solved, let's remarry." "Okay." Laura didn't start well. The same old topic. "And it wasn't what I wanted to hear," I said. "If you want to talk like this, then I don't think it's necessary." I tried to get up and see her off, but Laura pulled me back. She screamed, "What do you want? I won't contact Jake anymore. I told you before I was just helping him. This was the last time I helped him. Her question stunned me. What do I want? Is it about what I want? From the beginning to the end, she never asked for my opinion. At that moment, the emotions I had suppressed for months finally exploded. I had been struggling to maintain my dignity as a man. The harm Laura and Jake caused me wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was the collapse of trust. When they treated me like a fool, secretly flirting under my nose. When they humiliated me to this extent and still thought I should endure it. I began to reflect on myself. What did I do to make others think they could walk all over me? Were they secretly mocking me when I was being sincere with them? Mocking me for being a blind and foolish idiot? Laura, the worst part is you. If you wanted to love someone else, a divorce would have sufficed. But you chose Jake, knowing he was once my best bro and still kept things ambiguous with him. Laura, you're despicable. You say you won't contact Jake anymore. Is it because you don't want to? Or because Jake won't contact you? He blocked you, didn't he? Laura, Jake is a scumbag, but you are worse than him. You're turning back now because you think we can still make do, right? But why should I make do with you? Why do you think you're so despicable that I still have to take you back? You say Mia is a bad woman, but how are you, Laura? Any different from her? Do you need me to spell it out for you? If I ignore you, you still want to degrade yourself by coming to me. You still refuse to admit your mistake, putting all the blame on me. It's my suspicion, my dirty thoughts, my narrow-mindedness, my selfishness. Isn't that right, Laura? You really deserve to be scolded. My sudden outburst left Laura stunned. She said, I never blamed you or wanted to hurt you. I sat on the sofa, closing my eyes slowly, and said, what do you mean by not wanting to hurt? Clearly liking someone else but hiding it from me. Isn't it that you feel it's painful not to be with another man, but at the same time you think you're doing it for me, maintaining our family's dignity, protecting my face, so you feel noble, Laura. I see it clearly. Your ambiguous relationship with Jake was mixed with your revenge against me. You've been dissatisfied with our marriage for a long time, right? You've long been tired of our relationship, right? You think I've restrained you, possessed you, and that a little revenge doesn't matter. You think all I lose is my dignity as a man while you lose love. Right. But Laura, you're not as important as you think, and I'm not as pathetic as you think. I said long ago, if you don't like it, get a divorce. Whoever leaves will move on. Laura seemed to be hit hard. Her body slumped down. She leaned on a chair and muttered, it shouldn't be like this. We shouldn't have become like this. But what should we be like? When you agreed to my proposal, you said you loved me and would love me for a lifetime. When we got married, you said you loved me and would stay with me for a lifetime. Later, during the days and nights we spent together, once I felt you weren't happy with me and mentioned divorce, you cried angrily, saying anything was okay but not divorce. But you strayed. You forgot your promises, and you expected me to wait for you. Why? Laura left, stumbling slightly, her figure disappearing into the distance with a sense of loss. She never appeared in front of me again. There were no further developments between her and Jake. The last message I received from Jake wasn't long ago. He said he was going back to his hometown. He said he didn't want to stay in this city anymore. He said, Bro Ming, everything that happened was my fault. I deserve this miserable ending. But I've always considered you my bro. Whether you acknowledge me as your bro or not, you'll always be my bro. I found his words laughable, but for the sake of our brotherhood, I personally saw him off to his hometown. Asterisk, asterisk, epilogue. Laura's perspective, asterisk, asterisk. My introduction to Ethan was quite dramatic. It was when I was in university, working part-time as a tutor in an old neighborhood. No elevator, no security system, not even functioning stairwell lights. That day, I arrived on time and pushed open the iron door to the hallway, coming face to face with him at the first floor exit. I didn't move, waiting for him to go upstairs or leave, but he didn't move either. At that moment, fear gripped me. Could he be a bad person? What should I do, run away? But I felt frozen, unable to move. Even my breathing almost stopped. After what felt like an eternity, someone finally came downstairs. They asked him, "Why are you just standing there? Weren't you going out for a smoke?" The men chuckled. "I think I scared this young lady." That man was Ethan. I didn't get a clear look at his face that day until he approached me later at school and greeted me. He spoke softly, as if afraid of scaring me. He was a gentle and considerate person, quite unlike Jake. Jake was sensitive, melancholic, always full of worries, and timid, unable to shoulder responsibilities. I didn't like him much, especially when Ethan got hurt because of him. By then, Ethan and I were already together. I was furious, cleaning his wound and asking, "Aren't you afraid?" He laughed sheepishly. "Of course, but how can a big bro ignore his little bro in trouble? Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Ethan was always like this, never taking my advice, never needing anyone's help. I asked him why. He said he was used to it. Later, I often thought maybe it was because Ethan was always so headstrong, too much of a macho man. Then a warm and respectful guy like Jake came along. I got lost. That time he got drunk because he was sad, and I went to pick him up, listening to him talk about his deep feelings for Mia, hearing him self-destruct and self-deprecate, seeing his pain. My heart ached, and I suddenly wanted to hug him, give him all my love, save him. And so it spiraled out of control. I paid more and more attention to him, cared more and more about him, felt more and more for him. I realized I liked him after a partner told me, "You're being impulsive. Such a small case shouldn't affect you like this. If you're not feeling well, let someone else handle it. Don't let emotions get in the way." After hearing those words, I spent 3 hours on the rooftop until Jake called. "Do you want to come over?" At that moment, I was filled with tenderness, even smiling as I replied, "Sure." I had fallen for Jake. I could feel that he had feelings for me, too. But neither of us broke the silence. We pretended nothing inappropriate had happened. We even deliberately ignored Ethan's presence. Ethan said that when I was being ambiguous with Jake, it was out of revenge against him. I vehemently denied it. But deep down, I knew Ethan was right. I didn't want to hurt Ethan. I just didn't love him anymore. I transferred my affections to someone else but didn't seek a resolution. I gave up my own love to fulfill his desire for dignity, to maintain the facade of a harmonious family. I wronged myself and Jake, but I felt I hadn't wronged Ethan. That was my thinking back then. I was lost, obstinate, but even then I felt a vague sense of guilt towards Ethan. The first time I felt a crisis was when Ethan caught Jake and me together one night. He questioned what we were doing. At that moment, Jake and I panicked. The embarrassment and shame of being caught made me lash out. I blamed Ethan for having dirty thoughts, trying to cover my own disgrace. That was the first time I considered ending things with Jake. So I called Jake. I said, "Jake, I like you. The kind of like where I want to be with you. But I can't betray Ethan." Jake was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Ethan is my bro. You can't betray him." We promised each other that once the case was over, we wouldn't see each other again. So we treated that time as our last hurrah. That's why we were so careless, so full of flaws. But I didn't care anymore. Thinking about losing my true love for the rest of my life, I wasn't afraid of anything. True love. It came fast and went fast. So what's true love? It was just a surge of hormones. When I realized Ethan truly wanted to divorce me, I felt like I had fallen from a great height. I deceived myself, telling myself Ethan was just angry with me, that once I ended things with Jake, he would come back to me and love me as he did before. I went to find Jake, and he looked at me with a complicated expression. He said, "You shouldn't have come. You didn't really think about marrying me, did you?" "What do you mean?" Jake laughed. He shook his head as he looked at me. "You don't really think about marrying me, do you?" He shook his head, looking at me. "You don't deserve to be Ethan's wife, and I don't deserve to be his bro. I was just seeking a sense of accomplishment with you, and I was equally blinded by the thrill of the affair, unable to distinguish right from wrong." Mia said, "Everything in this world changes. Why can't I? Why can't my feelings for you change?" I called her a scumbag, but I ended up becoming the person I least wanted to be.
Wasting mine.
We have eyes on a big fucking tank in your area. Our troops are attacking Delta.
Faster down! Faster down!
The enemy are attacking Echo. Attention, we need defensive support on the marked objective. Attention, our troops have lost objective Echo.
Helicopter destroyed! Coming down!
That was so instant. Getting the jet.